Hey guys, welcome back to the Danger Planet. This is Brandon. I'm joined today by Doug, as always.
Hello.
And today we have a super special guest that we've been waiting to get quite a while on the channel. It's Kyle Rowan from Weird.
Hi, everyone.
Oh my gosh. So Kyle, for those of you who do not know, is one of the weird guys. If you've ever been to a convention, I think where Weird as a company was, there's a better than average chance you've spoken to Kyle at some point. I think. Um, Kyle, I'm not super sure exactly what your official job title is, but what is your deal? What do you do? Who are you at Weird?
So my job title is a pretty long one. I'm the Design Lead Project Coordinator, and that's a fancy way for saying I wear a lot of hats here at Weird.
Very cool. What are your like top three? What are the things you're doing pretty much like mostly?
I make games. Let's see, I edit games, and I lead teams. So we'll go with all of that. And then there's, I'm like you said, I'm at conventions. I'm on the Facebook interacting,
Ooh.
doing the community stuff. So Discord, I'm there.
Ooh. In fact,
So
I would venture to say that you're on several Discords, not just the Play
yes,
Weird Discord, but I think
I like sneaking there.
you might even be on the Danger Planet Discord.
Yep.
Yep.
Hmm.
Very cool. I know obviously you have a pretty big hand in Malifaux, which is probably one of Weird's most popular products, and is
Sure, I'd say that.
sort of the reason that we met, I think, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but also, I think if you've ever picked up a box of Vagrantsong, I think that your name is on that box. Is that? I
Sure.
think that's
Yeah,
fair
it's
to
in there.
say.
It's in there somewhere. Bayou Bash. And I mean, if you go digging, there's a free print and play expansion for Darkness Comes Rattling, with my name on it as well. That
Oh, I
was
didn't know
pretty
that.
much the first thing that I kind of got out there as a weird designer. So
Very cool. So, how long have you been with Weird? I mean, I know Weird started originally in like 2005, right? Or maybe
yeah,
even
Weird
before
as a
that.
company has been around for about 17 years now, I think. Yeah, I think this Black Friday birthday event was 17 for us, and come January, I've been here for 6. So the very first thing I did when I sat down as a designer here is actually worked on the very first book for the other side. So that was years and years ago. Crafting all those stories, editing, getting all that piece together. They just plop that in front of me and say, "Solve this," and I was doing that. So, and since then, lots of other projects have come my way. So,
Wild. So would you say that you do more from like a gameplay perspective, more of like a rules thing, more of a lore thing? Because I've sort of always envisioned you as like the lore master of Weird, and maybe that's not.
I would say it actually depends on the project. When it comes to Malifaux and the other side, yeah, I am the lore guy. But I'm also kind of like the overseer of it all. The character direction is kind of the thing that I hold close to heart. I want to make sure that, and with that, I want to make sure that the characters, their stories, and how they feel, and how they function, and how you can get a semblance of what they are as people on the table with the names of actions, the functions of actions, and that sort of thing. And but the rest of the mechanical side of Malifaux, I leave to people who are much smarter than me. So
Do you find, Kyle, I have a interesting question I've been wanting to ask you for over a year now. Do you find that when you write the lore, I guess what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do the rules come first, or do the framework of the characters fitting into the world come first for you? For as Weird as a company, how does that inception happen? You know?
it's it's not really a clean process of we're going A, B, C, and D, like working through a machine. That's not us. As you might know, Weird is a really small company, and there's a handful of us that it really kind of it depends. For the most part, though, I will say that I am a theme and story-driven designer first. So when it comes to creating characters in Malifaux, especially, I like to think of the characters that are in this world and where they are, the narrative is at a certain point, and yeah, the sort of characters that we can present in that given time, the ones that make the most sense then. Um, but that's not always the case either. Sometimes it's, we want to do this crazy hive mind thing, and all of a sudden we had Nexus, so
Which is awesome. Which is awesome.
so yeah, like I said, it ultimately depends. For the most part, though, for me, even with Vagrantsong, as you mentioned, I got to start with the story first. That's the thing that hooks me as a player and as a designer. So that's where I start.
It makes a lot of sense because Brandon and I are the biggest cheerleaders for Malifaux of all time at our LGS when people come in. So Brandon manages the LGS out here in Saugus and near Boston. And when people come in and they're looking for a game, we start with Malifaux. But I'm a very technical bits and bolts player, right? Like most games that I play for the rule set. But
Sure.
Malifaux has been one of the few times I've really enjoyed genuinely the lore. And when we pitch the game, we lead with the lore, and it enraptures people, like, because it's so unique. There's not a lot of settings out there that are quite as similar. And I think the thing that I personally love about the lore is that it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also tells a really interesting narrative. And is that something that you intend when you're kind of writing this stuff? Are you like, I want to be a little tongue-in-cheek and funny, but I also want to tell a really interesting story with all these types of characters? Or does that just, like, how does that happen for you, I guess?
No, that's a great question. So, for starters, it is a dark world. There's certainly a ton of dark elements, but in my opinion, you can't create a strong dark universe without having humor, because that's kind of the human element of it all. You can't. You need to be kind of shocked back into reality from time to time to have that real moment, and sometimes it's ridiculous. Now, I don't want to take credit for that 100% either. I'm pretty much like the guy that's I'm the puppet master. I'm Collodi at Wyrd, I guess, if you want to. But we have writers, that are much more talented than I am, that take our crazy ideas and shape them into something better. And it's a back and forth. One thing that I love about working at Wyrd is that everything that we work on is collaboration focused. There's never an echo chamber. There's never anyone who's pushing in one direction, fighting against it all. We're always in the thick of it regardless, so everyone's got their input on these stories. I just want to make sure that nobody gets the wrong image that I'm kind of like this lore god telling what Nakima's doing next and that sort of thing. That's not what I'm doing.
You put your fingers to your forehead and you just think deeply and close your eyes and you channel the very essence of these characters.
Right.
Is that what you're saying happens at the Wyrd office on a regular basis?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Manhattan. I've hopped up to Mars and I'm bored of this world. So
yeah, when they pull you down, that's how they ping you. They like, hey man, Kyle, you got to come back down to Earth for a second. We need your help.
Oh wait, is it Dr. Manhattan? Did I just lose my nerd card by saying?
Well, he's
Manhattan?
At some point you didn't have his degree yet.
But...
okay.
Don't worry, we can fix it in post.
Perfect.
Will not be fixed in post.
Oh no. That's wild. So okay, so. We talked super briefly, I think, a couple times now about Vagrantsong, which we definitely have to do like a whole episode on very soon. But so Vagrantsong is such a unique premise. I mean, obviously Bayou Bash, right? That's set in Malifaux. It's for using Malifaux characters, but Vagrantsong is just so starkly different than Malifaux. But it has an amazing like feel to it. And I assume then you must have started with sort of a story and a premise before you got to mechanics and sort of rules and stuff. But where did the seed of Vagrantsong come from? Like, did you just wake up one day and just have this idea for a hobo train game and just sort of run full speed?
I believe the technical term is hobos on ghost trains.
Yeah,
I believe.
Mm-hmm. It all started when I was 12 years old playing Final Fantasy 3.
Amazing.
No. So Vagrant Song is a little bit of a different beast as far as like my role here. That from the mechanical side to it to the lore side of it, that was kind of the thing that I championed from the beginning. And then, thankfully, I had the great design team that are working on Malifaux and Through the Breach that helped me kind of steer some of my crazy ideas. But that one is more of I took the driver's wheel, so to speak, on that. But not to give too many details so I don't break my own NDA, but essentially how Vagrant Song started is we were working on a dungeon crawl at the time, and it just wasn't working for whatever reason. One thing that you probably don't know is that at Wyrd we're working on a bunch of games and scrapping them just as quick. It's just you don't see all the half-baked ideas that just kind of get flung to the side. But I really wanted to make a dungeon crawl at the time, and the theme of it wasn't working for me. So I pitched 3 or 4 of them, and the last one was kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna Hail Mary this. This is the dream project that I've wanted to work on. This is the culmination of all the weird things I love, from Jack Kerouac to Bob Dylan to It Follows. There's all sorts of things that I reference in that game, and I just went for it. And that was the one that stuck out when I pitched it, and thankfully it exists. It made its way to the finish line, so that's kind of how that one happened.
You just said an incredibly interesting thing. You said you guys have a lot of ideas in the air at any given time, and often you scrap them and move on. If you're in a scenario like that, how do you know if an idea is maybe cool but just not quite getting there? And when do you know when to let go of the project and just try a different thing?
Largely that's going to come just from experience. And the one thing I try to instill in every designer that I talk to is get comfortable with killing your darlings, because
Damn, that's a harsh reality.
yeah, and it is a reality, because ultimately that favorite thing that you really wanted to champion, there's a good chance that it's gonna have friction against something else that's associated with it, and it's just not gonna work out. Now, when I say kill your darlings, I don't mean tear apart that notebook and burn it. I've got notebooks full of old ideas, and there's been more times than not where I've revisited them, and you could even see that in Madness of Malifaux. I don't want to try to transition into that automatically, but there's a lot of that in there.
Good segue. So yeah, I mean that's super interesting. I think every time I talk to I want to say one of you weirdos, because that's my favorite thing to think. But every time I talk to one of you guys, I learn like this. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, where we just learn more about Wyrd as a company, which has made all of these games that we love so much. But I guess the natural transition there is, so Damien Ravencroft, right? How
Sure.
So how obviously we have this brand new book, Madness of Malifaux, and there's all kinds of cool stuff in it. There's 6 new masters that in some cases I think are completely brand new to the game, almost whole like factions that are sort of brand new, at least to Malifaux, but taken from elsewhere, like Tull with the Kingsguard and the Awa, I think, have been around for a while, but this is the first I think we've heard of Tiri.
Yeah, so the Awa in name have actually are relatively new. They came, we announced them, I guess, in the lore of From Nightmares, but there have been bits and pieces of their existence throughout the lore of Malifaux since first edition. All of those old machinery, the anti-Kytheran device, there's all sorts of bits and pieces that you can go explore and figure out that, oh, there was this ancient people that we haven't really talked about. And From Nightmares is where we kind of spilled the beans on that, and then with this book we went a little deeper.
Right. And I mean, I know From Nightmares was I think the first mention that we had of Castor as well.
Yep.
Right, he was in there. But so you mentioned that you sort of take these notebooks and you put them aside. Has you know, Damien Ravencroft, for those who don't know, was in a very very old story, which I think probably predates you at Weird, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Anything. So I basically came in during the development of Broken Promises.
gotcha.
So last book of second edition, if you're not familiar.
So how was Damien a character that sort of stuck out to you? Was it something, were you looking for characters from the old stories to bring in, or has, I'd like to think that there was just a picture of Damien on the wall that, you know, every day you guys walked past and were like looking to try and figure out how to slot him back in. But that's one of the things that I know Sam is super super interested, because Sam has loved the puzzle box story
Oh yeah.
forever. But like, how did you get to that? How did you get to that being the egg that you plucked from the notebook? You know?
So I mean, like I just said, I kind of got into Malifaux halfway through the lore. There was already this rich lore before I got here, and Damien isn't even the first time that I've done something like this. English Ivan is the one that I would really consider as the first one we looked back at, and we looked at the existing lore and we said, you know, this is an awesome character that we have in a story and you know, sprinkled throughout with Ivan. And we had to make him exist on the table. Some characters don't work out that way. Sometimes we want to have those characters that are too big for the game, maybe, or too special in the story. There's a fair amount of Through the Breach characters that we won't be bringing into the world, for example. But when it's right, it just feels right. And Damien has always had that special spot for me too. Like that story is really neat, and it's told in such a unique way. You read Puzzle Box, and it doesn't read like a Malifaux story traditionally. It feels very different, in just the structure and voice of the whole thing. And what excites me as a designer is when looking back at those old characters, there's room to create. You know, with Damien and even Ivan, it was essentially just like a taste of the character. There were so many directions that we can move them, we can grow them in. Like Ivan, for example, if you aren't familiar with the lore, he had nothing to do with shadows before anything. We put him on the table, and now since we did bring him in, you know, it opened up a whole new avenue of opportunity for the character. And the same with Damien. And now I don't want to spoil too much with the story, but he does get associated with a tyrant. If you're, you probably know its keyword at this point.
For sure. Yeah, you know, so when he first got announced, I think, I immediately I had heard Puzzle Box because Sam has just talked about this story before, completely unrelated to anything else. But as soon as he got announced, I bought the book, because you can buy it through DriveThruRPG right now. If you haven't, it's the
They're dirt cheap too. I think those are real
it's like
cheap.
$3. It's so worth it. It's the second edition Malifaux book. I can't remember what the title it is, but maybe we'll link it below. But we, you know, I bought it immediately and read it, and it was really really good. It's a great story, very interesting pacing, but it brought it definitely brought a little bit of flavor to it. But reading through all the stuff in Malifaux Burns, Damien is such a neat character, and there are so many awesome scenes where he's like, you know, interacting with some of the other characters, and you know, his relationship with his ex witchling handler Bellaventian Thorpe. He sort of sprang to life in a new way reading through this book. Also, if you don't know, buy this book, it's really good. Huge fan. So I guess we probably can't talk too much about timeline exactly, right? But obviously this Madness of Malifaux book is the current update to, you know, the Malifaux like meta plot effectively, and to a pretty big extent, I guess, some other side stuff, right?
Sure.
The Burning Man is pretty important right now in the lore. So what was sort of, I guess, the coalescing point of, okay, we have all these characters that we want to introduce. How did you get to the point where this is the book that it became? You know, what was sort of the how did we get to this is a new book for Malifaux with 6 new characters in it?
Well, from a storytelling perspective, it actually didn't start with Madness of Malifaux. So the third edition, we came out with 7 faction books. Each faction book had their 3 unique stories in it, and that kind of followed a similar structure into how we were doing it with second edition, where each book would have, I think in second edition it was 5 stories per book, but we had more books, and we had about 21 stories in that one. And then Explorer Society came out, and we did the same thing, and we covered the same kind of ground with the faction books. But once we were done with that, we wanted to revisit how we were telling stories in the world, and we actually looked back at first edition, and the structure of those books is very different than second or those faction books, in that it's essentially this sprawling open narrative that's looser and involves more characters, where there's micro scenes of certain characters popping in and out, and that's something that I've always really enjoyed reading. So I wanted to revisit that, and so that's what we did with Malifaux Burns, where we had this, instead of doing three smaller stories, we went epic, and we wanted to do a continuation of that. Now, as far as the character direction, that's more about what's best for the game, what's healthier for the game, where we have a lot of characters in Malifaux, so we do have to play a little bit of a dance to make sure that the characters that we're releasing do fit in with what's fun and what's not overwhelming to players, because it can be a bit of a tightrope to walk. So that's kind of where the new masters came in, because that was more of a widespread option rather than digging too deeply into existing keywords. It was a way for us to provide new ways to play, and new stories to tell. So
yeah, and I think so. I finished reading through my Madness of Malifaux book pretty recently. I think this morning I started to read through some of the character stuff, but the book just came out. I think we just got ours at the store, but I bought mine, obviously, at PAX Unplugged, where I saw Kyle last week. So in the new book, I think there's probably like three main stories, I think, really, or is there maybe 4 main stories that pop out. We have Tiri and sort of her story, as she's sort of leading her people to Malifaux. We have Nekema awakening Castor, which I'm like a Neverborn player at heart. I'm sure most of the listeners who have listened know. But oh my god, cool boy, that one was. There's so many cool things. And then we have Tull joining the guild, with the Governor General and Hoffman as his like onboarding.
That conversation is my favorite part of the book, where he's like, you're like, specifically the line where he's like, your track record is impressive, concerning but impressive. Favorite line.
Yeah, Tull's real. He walks quietly, nothing too explosive with Tull.
Oh my gosh. And then we sort of have, I guess we really sort of, I guess, have 6, right? Then, because we also have Damien, we have the Red Library situation.
Right.
And I think,
yeah, I would say there's kind of 5-ish paths, and most of them do involve the new masters and how they get looped into the story continuation of the Burning Man being the ultimate problem. And then there is maybe you could even argue that there is a 6th, but it's a little bit more subtle with Marlowe. He was kind of the main character of Malifaux Burns in dealing with this, and you actually kind of see some of the machinations of his work in here, namely Tull, and how Tull deals with things. So
I can't imagine that Marlowe is going to regret having onboarded Tull to Malifaux.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
Certainly there's been almost no collateral damage so far. But yeah, I mean, like the story of the book is super cool. If anything, I think I'm a little sad that now we have all these cool stories, and I just want to know what happens next. Um, but do you have like a sort of elevator pitch for like the sort of what's happening in Malifaux as we speak? You know, where we're going, where we're at currently in the story. I mean, obviously the Madness of Malifaux has a specific reason why you chose that as the title. Is that something you want to sort of?
Well, I don't actually have an elevator pitch, but I could do something on the fly, I guess.
Please.
If you're not familiar with the Burning Man, the Burning Man is a byproduct of the previous leader of the guild, the Kitchener, the previous Governor General. He wanted to become a tyrant, and some things happened, and this happened in mid second edition. This part of the story. And he combined essentially with an existing tyrant named Sharoof and became the Burning Man, this entirely new entity who can bounce in and out of time. He floats in the sky, and anyone below him who's a little bit more vulnerable can get warped and succumb to this madness essentially that he can unleash. And this is also how the other side story kind of started as well, is that his chaos and the things that he brought ended up creating the war on Earth as we know it now. Now fast forward a little bit after we see, you know, the Burning Man fight above London and other places on Earth. We actually get to see the side of the Burning Man that we had glimpses of, but nothing really came to fruition. And that's where he's kind of hopping breaches in other worlds, and he just so happened to land in Malifaux. Surprise, surprise! Kitchener's back. When that happened, Malifaux freaked the heck out, and that's where we had Malifaux Burns, titled that way because, spoiler, he set things on fire. And in that book, it's kind of just chaos and dealing with it, putting out fires, and not really understanding what you're dealing with. But the guild, for example, did have some experience having fought with on the Earth side. This is the Madness of Malifaux is the continuation of that story, where now people are a little bit more prepared. They are working towards certain goals, and we are seeing big name characters reach out to lesser known characters and kind of bringing them up in the spotlight and seeing what they can bring to the table, such as Damien, such as Castor, as you brought up. Lin Lee is the same way, where we have this the library. There was this existing thing that's been in the world since first edition, and now we're getting to see the inner workings of how the Ten Thunders have manipulated in this book, and we get to see that years later and all the inner workings and magic that's happening there, and the benefits of having that sort of. So if anyone is not familiar with the Red Library, I guess I should probably explain that a little bit.
Please. Super cool concept.
So the Red Library is kind of this infinite place where it covers all knowledge of, past, present, and future. There's all sorts of things in there. Pretty much anything that has happened is written down in a book somewhere, and its doors aren't in the same spot every single time. So you kind of have to know where you're going in order to enter and to exit the library. The Ten Thunders a long time ago entered it and have made kind of a section of it make sense to them, because when you have an infinite library full of all things that you can learn, you kind of have to try to grasp some of it and sort it out. So that's what the Red Library is. It's kind of like a hallway in this infinite library, and that's where Lin Lee comes into play, and that's where she's what she's responsible for there. So we get to see how that works, and how time and fate with the Burning Man interact with that crazy system of the library, and can there be any sort of interesting interactions there? I don't want to spoil too much.
Yeah, I mean, almost every one of the new Ten Thunder Masters, uh, stories have something to do with the library in some capacity. Lynn she's super cool character. I love the description in the book about how she's taken over now since the person who ran the library under the previous Oyabun, Masaki's father, was running it, and it was all like this cold and like oppressive just section of this thing, and they had, I think at one point they describe it as they have to like beat the answers out of everything to just get any headway. And since Ling has taken over, it's like this fancy, like, comfortable place, and people are filled with, there's like spirits wandering all over the place, and they just like pop out of nowhere and like follow people around and like light the way and make people all warm and cozy. So I think we see this. I mean, this library is clearly a super important entity to the fabric of the Malifaux universe, right?
Yeah, it's this living sentient thing that clearly did not react well to the previous proprietor and is very welcoming to Linley instead. And we get to see some of the fruits of that in this, and you get to see that in the keyword too, with the book lights. And it doesn't matter how many times I've been taught how to pronounce it properly. Map, despite this character being something that we worked on, I'm horrible with pronunciation, so I apologize.
I love that little guy. He's the man.
Yeah, yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to see the model. He's so cool looking. I think what is he? He's size 3, right? I think. I have the book in front of me. I can't wait to see this model. Yeah, he's on a 50 mil. He's size 3. He's got to be this huge crazy dude, and with the lamp, and he's just like sort of a friendly book blob. Oh my gosh, what a cool dude. But yeah, I can't. It's such a neat take, because I guess Sam sort of explained to me what the Ten Thunders sort of overall game plan in Malifaux is, to sort of integrate their like lore and their stories into this chunk of the library, so that they become more and more attached, right? Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but so that they can sort of intertwine with Malifaux and become sort of its rulers, for lack of a better premise.
Yeah, and you actually kind of see that in first edition too, when the Ten Thunders sort of were announced. Is at the time they were all cross faction. They were sneaking into all these existing places and just trying to make it their own. So yeah, that flavor has been in with the faction from the start.
Which is such a cool take. I really like the new characters, and I cannot wait to see their models. But I think my favorite character in the book has to be Castor. He doesn't really even have a whole lot going on, because when the story sort of picks up, he's just waking up. And I don't know if this was your sort of premise, but as I was reading the initial Castor scenes, where and I obviously don't want to go too much into it, but there's a whole trial that Nekoma has to go through, and she's like waking up Castor. It had such big Underworld vibes for me. I don't know if you've seen Underworld, the first one, where Kate Beckinsale's character has to wake up Victor because the vampire coven's out of control and everything's about to die, and they're facing existential threats that are going to conquer them. And she just like wakes up Victor, and he's like, "What? Why have you awakened me?" And it just has that. The whole scene read so much like that. It was like I was freaking out as I was reading it. It's super cool. I don't know if that was your intent or not, or the intent between the writers, but I'm trying to figure out a question more than just nerding out.
Just want to talk about Castor?
Okay, yeah. Castor. What do you got? Is there any cool scoop on Castor? I know. So we have a bunch of stuff in the book, right? We have his entries and stuff, and then we have a little bit in From Nightmares. But what can we expect from this new Nephilim guy? I guess really.
So I can't even take credit for Castor. Castor was originally a character from Nightmares, designed by our RPG writer Matthew, and it was just a concept I fell in love with right from the start, and I was like, I need to see more of this character. I need to see more of him. Give me more.
For sure.
And we got more. We got a lot more of him in this book. But just the idea of this, I mean, everyone knows Nephilim at this point in Malifaux and how they're these ancient creatures and have been around for so long and are these giant imposing forces in this Knotwoods, but no one really knew about the pockets of them. Like we've really only seen the two sisters really in their interactions, but there's a lot more. And Castor's not the only one. There's actually a few more that have actually been talked about from Nightmares. And if you're interested in the inner workings of the Nephilim, I would highly recommend going to check that stuff out. But Castor's this ancient thing. He's essentially the uncle to Lilith and Nekima, and he's when Black Blood happened, something did not happen well with him. It did not transform him in the same way as it did for the rest of the Nephilim, which ended up making it so that he's still black-blooded, but at the same time also needed black blood in order to survive. It was this horrible give and take system of vampiric, I guess, is a great way to compare it. And he's been resting because there's that's not an easy thing to put on one's conscience. In order for me to survive, I have to feed on my own people. So he's been resting all this time until he's absolutely needed, essentially being drip fed through these rituals and that sort of thing, and just kind of sustaining himself until someone hits that big red button. And that's what happens in this book.
Yeah. And they cover in the story, I guess, the last time this happened, which sort of, I guess, really talks about why he's so surprised when Nekima. Is it Nekima, by the way? I know I've asked you this before. Nekima. Do you say Nekima? Do you say Nekima?
I say Nekima. I'm not going to correct anyone who says Nekima.
Fair enough.
And just for the people at home, Yezda or Jezda?
I say Yedza, but
Cool.
Again, it's okay.
Yeah.
Each to their own.
So the way that I see Malifaux personally is that this isn't my game. I'm just one of the people helping steering the ship. This has always been the community's game, and we're just kind of making sure that everyone's having a great time. If you need to pronounce a character's name one way, just have fun with it. I'm not there to stop you. Pronounce it however you'd like.
All right. So we have official confirmation. It's whatever you want to say. Yedza, Jedza, Yezda.
That's my perspective.
Even though the D is before the Z, it's fine.
No, Yedza. So it's a soft J. We're yogging. We're not jogging.
Yeah.
We're yogging. We're not jogging. Kyle.
That makes sense.
That's the best soundbite of the entire interview, by the way.
Amazing. Man, Yalifo, what a game. So, okay. So I the Nephilim. The swords. There's so many cool things about the Nephilim. They're named swords, and I want to know all the other Nephilim. When can I expect my book, my whole all Nephilim faction? I want 7 Nephilim masters.
Kyle,
They
he's
all have
asking
their
for a
own.
Disney level documentary produced specifically on Nephilim for him.
I would
Perfect.
love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm also I'm not supposed to have bias over any of these characters, but I also happen to really love the Neverborn. I think that they have some of the more interesting stories, and the things that we've done with them more recently have really excited me. Actually, right now I would say that my favorite character is in a different faction, but we'll go over to that. But before that, it was Euripides. I just loved that character. I love what he's doing. On the table, off the table. I just think it's a really cool story for him. I know he's not the new shiny right now. We want to talk about all the new shiny stuff.
No, I mean he very much is. I think, but his second. I mean, obviously, I think he's one of the newest masters to the game, right? If not,
Yeah, in 3rd edition, sure. Yeah.
He was new for 3rd edition, right? He came out with M3, right?
Yeah.
I think I've watched Craig from Third Floor War interviewing a couple of people about that many times. But so, Euripides. So Euripides was your favorite Neverborn for a while. Is that sort of where you were?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess it was for a different reason. Like, I felt partially responsible for helping create that character and those. So it was a special bond, I guess, where I kind of started with third edition and those characters. I don't want to say that I was the creator of Euripides, but I did have a hand in it. And since then, I would say that Yedza is probably the one with the one closest to my heart, I should say, because that one is sort of my baby of Malifaux. I love that keyword so much. And it started off as something very different. I don't know if anyone's ever told you that story.
No, please. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so what I wanted to do from the beginning was a character in the Necropolis that kind of looked like the stereotypical hunter, kind of like the bad guy in Jumanji. If you can imagine, like that,
Yes.
that sort of like explorer kind of vibe.
Yeah, Lord
But-
Cooper. Yep.
Yeah, for full on skeleton though, but fake mustache, maybe like a Hawaiian shirt, very humorous light style character, and this shows you how. So I have a general mantra when I'm making games where, despite getting rid of killing your darlings, start with bad ideas and don't be afraid to get those bad ideas out, because bad ideas turn into good ideas. Because eventually we got to what is Yedza now, and talking about where she came from. It's not from the Necropolis, it's instead from the Dancing Forest, which is a real place. You can go look up the Dancing Forest. It's kind of what it's inspired by. And I won't go into too much background on her, because we actually haven't spoiled a bunch of it. But the Dancing Forest is the little thing that I like to tease, so you can get a hint of maybe where she's from. But yeah, I mean, you could just see the difference of that stupid, crazy idea of here's like this charismatic bag of bones character into this much more interesting, more dynamic character now, after having collaborated with people who all kind of chime in on it. So
Can I just for those who are out there, maybe people who are listening, Nathan, Kelly, I don't know who gets to make these decisions.
oh boy,
But
you're getting me in trouble.
Yedza Nightmare Box.
Quick,
right?
mute Brandon.
No, we'll cut this if I need to. Yedza Nightmare Box. I want a skeleton wearing a Hawaiian shirt for the Yedza Nightmare Box. You haven't done one officially for Explorers as a faction, outside of the McCabe, who is Explorers now, but that doesn't count. So
Can
we
you
need-
It doesn't
imagine?
count. Okay.
We need
seeker
next year.
keyword. The seeker keyword goes on a Hawaiian vacation, so you've got like Sophie with a giant, bright colored lei, and maybe Sophie's like a pinata or something. That'd be hilarious.
Yep.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, for
Should we
sure.
just jot these ideas down? I can't guarantee anything.
Just saying, putting that out there. You
That'd be
guys can have
amazing.
that idea free of charge.
I
That's
have a question for
crazy.
you, Kyle. When you come up with characters, right? Obviously, there are a lot of different factions that are kind of happening in the same universe at the same time. When you come up with characters, do you have like a big bubble idea of things that you want to develop or bring into Malifaux, or do you just one at a time as they come up and they're good enough, pull them into the story? And I guess the reason I'm asking that is there ever a thing in the back of your mind, oh, we just made a Neverborn character, so now we've got to do like a Rezer character because it hasn't happened in a while? Or is it more of an organic process for you where you're like, I like this idea and I like this concept and it's really strong and will be additive to my narrative? How does that work for you in your brain?
It's a little bit of both. Ultimately, though, the way it boils down is on the scheduling of the game. So we do need to release models at a certain time that feel right for the book that we're working on. But the characters that we're working on in the background are not all the characters that you see in one chunk. There's stuff that we've been working on since or have had floating around, I should say, since the dawn of third edition, I guess you could say, that just hasn't made it out yet because it hasn't found the right time or moment for that. And I could think of 10 or so characters right off the top of my head that just haven't made their way in, and they might never, honestly, because again, we just have to be comfortable with discarding those ideas or reshaping them. Everything is, until we hit print, everything is an amorphous blob. But sometimes we have to fill a hole. Sometimes we have art without a story, and we have something that works kind of out. Sometimes we created a concept for another game and it worked out here. The Clampets actually, that's how they came to be. So if you're unfamiliar with old weird news posts, we actually showed the Clampet Silurid piece for a long time ago with the announcement of Bayou Bash, and it just didn't work out in that game. But here's this piece that was just wonderful with this ragtag family of gremlins on this giant Silurid. That wasn't something that I was really willing to let go of, so we ultimately
nor should you have been.
but and like ultimately once we realized that, okay, this is going to be a new master book where every faction is going to have a master, we revisited some of those old concepts, and now the Clampets are, you know, the gremlin family we all know and love. So
Look, it's like taken straight out of Looney Tunes from the 90s. It's amazing. I know that is very much Sam's favorite part of the book. He and I are actually going to play a game, and I'm going to be facing them on the table this Saturday. So I'll report back with how much they schmegel me.
Okay, perfect.
I'll let you know. I guess, do you have a favorite? We talked about your favorite master. Do you have a favorite faction narrative currently in the lore that you like the most right now?
Oh geez.
Like
So
holistically as a faction. I think you know what I'm asking. Yeah.
the things I like. So one thing that you should also be aware of is that Madness of Malifaux is something that we, as designers, worked on a long time ago, especially from a narrative point of view. You know, right now I'm working on the stuff that I can't talk about, and that's the stuff that's exciting me the most right now. Is all the stuff that's coming out later. You know, as we have to keep coming out with new shiny stuff. You know, so the things that I'm always working on at a given moment is the thing that's exciting me the most. And I think if I had it any other way, I think I would stagnate and not actually ultimately enjoy my job. So luckily I do get excited about the most recent work. But I guess looking back at, I guess we could probably look at the Madness of Malifaux stuff in particular, and I could probably pinpoint, I love the Castor stuff. I think the scenes in that branch of the narrative are some of the creepiest, darkest stuff that we've done, and it doesn't even have the most violent things that we've done. There's this one scene in particular where it's a back and forth between Nakima, and I cherish it to bits. It's just it's the hair on the back of your neck kind of situation, and I love those sorts of moments.
Do you ever let feedback shape? Like, you made a really good point, which is stuff is kind of in the rearview mirror by the time it hits production for you because you got so much going on. Do you ever, when people are getting their hands on the Malifaux Burns book and you're seeing people's reaction to it, does that ever shape the current pipeline project that you're working on? Like, for example, now, does that ever happen?
I think it would be impossible to honestly have the blinders on so much and just say no to that. I think that everything that I read and react to, all the feedback that I see, whether consciously or subconsciously, it sure makes an impact. I don't think it would be realistic for me to say not. Luckily, our community is awesome, especially when it comes to the narrative stuff. And rarely do I ever see, you know, this character is stupid sort of feedback. So there's rarely those sorts of instances where I have to really kind of worry, and I haven't had to like backpedal, if that's what you're trying to do.
No, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying like a fan favorite comes out and they're like, oh my god, we didn't think people were gonna love or attach so deeply to like Jezda, for example. Maybe we should do more Jezda stories or something like that. That's what I was thinking, honestly.
With her in particular, it's more like I want to get her in the stories as much as possible.
Dude, me too.
Please do.
Like we all want that too, man.
Can we just get a buddy cop movie with Yenza and Zoraida just hanging out? Because so there's like one scene in Madness that's like, it's not even long, it's like 3 paragraphs. And it's just like Zoraida's like knitting, Yenza's just like hanging out, twiddling her thumbs, and then they're just like sitting by the fire waiting for something to happen, and then the fire just roars up and they're like, all right, Burning Man's back. Cock the shotgun and just like sort of walk out. And it's like I would love to see an entire novel of just Yenza and Zoraida hanging out, going on adventures.
Just reacting to things that are happening
yeah.
around in the world, just having a tea party.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a sitcom I would sit down and watch. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I can't wait until that goes into syndication. Sorry. Well, I'm sorry. Oh, we're not supposed to know that. We'll cut it out.
I don't even remember where we were.
Yeah. So
I guess to some extent, sure. If people get really excited about things, that is going to amplify my own interest in pushing those narratives a little bit more. But ultimately, it doesn't reshape the goal either. Like when we look at a book, we're looking at the big picture of it all, the characters that we need to employ in it, and the conclusion of that book that we're trying to reach. And the feedback we get from players isn't going to really make us take a different path, so to speak. It might make us add a little cameo scene, but yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it.
So one of the things that I think I really appreciate about Malifaux, and I don't even know that this is so much a question, but I guess what is your guys' approach to like sort of gender? I guess equality is what I want to say. So Malifaux, more than I think any other war game,
maybe representation.
That is, yeah, representation. Yeah, that's definitely
not just gender, but maybe ethnicity, different walks of life.
Yeah.
I mean, Tull, for example, is deaf. I haven't seen it, and and then we've got people from all over the perceived world and every race, gender, and everything between. And I think that's what I would call it. I would call it representation.
Yeah, and I mean, as Malifaux being like one of the biggest, like literally, I think almost exactly half of the masters are female, which is like wild. There are literally, I don't think there are any other intellectual properties where out of the main cast of characters in this case, there are 60 masters now. I think 28 or 9 of them are female. Is that something that you guys like focus on, or has this happened accidentally?
It certainly hasn't happened accidentally. It's something that is insanely important to me, and I don't want to speak for others in the team, but I think it's something I could pretty comfortably do in this instance. Is that, yeah, it is absolutely important. And I think you could see a lot of that transition in 3rd edition in particular. While there were women and other ethnicities in the game previous to that, you could see that there was certainly a focus from the design direction. And you could also see that in other games that we work on too. Vagrantsong has the rich dynamic cast.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, it's important to me. Especially as the white guy with glasses and a beard, I'm already in the games that I play. I want to make sure that the people that sit down and play Malifaux can play it and have a character that they can relate to. That's really important to me. And you can see, hopefully, that we've done that right. There's always going to be some roadblocks, some mistakes along the way, because it's just we're all human. But yeah, we try to make right on that.
I can tell you a really kind of a cool story that goes to the heart of what you're saying, Kyle. We had a new player show up and learn how to play Malifaux, and one of the major reasons that caught their eye to the system was the Dia de los Muertos box, and that it's from their culture and their ethnicity.
Sure.
And literally, as they were buying the box, I was explaining to him the game system, and I was pitching it, right, because I want more players. And he's like, not only is this game system cool, but I'm looking at all these boxes, and it's really cool that you see an effort being made to represent something that's really close to me, and I think this is a great representation of it. So I'm going to buy it just for that reason. But I'm also glad that the game's cool. And I had never heard anyone say that about any other game system I've ever played before. So that comment kind of stuck with me, to be honest, which was cool. Like you don't really get that in too many of our little plastic men moving around a table thing. And I think that's a really, really cool part of what you guys have going on, honestly.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I mean, I guess one of the things that, even beyond that sort of thing, the conversation has kind of been more about storytelling and that sort of thing. And to push it in that sort of direction, there's a lot more interesting voices than just, you know, mine or my face, you know. That Maxine, for example, here's this woman in her 50s who's done it all. That's a really interesting story to me. What's the next thing that looks that she's doing, and that sort of thing. So it allows us to tell really interesting stories by having the representation, and it's an international world. So why wouldn't we cover it internationally? I don't know.
Yeah, and Malifaux is a very big international audience, I think, relative to the mix of folks that play it, which is cool. So
Yeah.
Brandon, any other burning last questions here? I guess. Burning and mad last questions here
Mad.
for Mr. Rowan.
I mean, can we just talk about Nephilim for another 45 minutes? That's
No,
always
that
on
will
my
be a
mind.
separate episode.
We'll have to do a Nephilim episode. We'll do cosplay. Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely have asked you a bunch of stuff. I know that from from a sort of lore and design perspective, the world building is evident, right? Malifaux is such a broad game with so many different influences. I don't even know that I'm getting to a question, to be perfectly honest. Just like thanks, it's really good. I really like it.
Thanks for playing and
please
championing
do
it in
more.
the area, because that's the. I mean, without people like you guys playing it at game stores, Wyrd wouldn't exist, So, thanks for having fun with it.
Yeah.
That's ultimately the more important thing.
Yeah,
I'm just a dude, so-
I'm just a guy that makes a really excellent skirmish game. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, and I'm here to tell you, man, Brandon and I have kind of only really been playing Malifaux for about a year and a half, but we both have 20 plus years of tabletop experience, and I will confidently make the claim that this is my favorite game system I've ever played by a long shot, and it's quite frankly not even close. And I enjoy interacting with Wyrd as an organization. Because you guys do a lot of things right. But also, like I said, I'm a tournament player, so I love the rules too. But it's just been so nice to have everything around that, the organization, the lore, how it functions, also be really nice, because that's not always the case. And so I think
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take all that credit, but I appreciate it. I mean, it's a team effort. There's a lot of much more talented people on this team. I just kind of steer the ship. So
Now, the biggest ask, and we save this to the end, we would like to try some TTS action with you on some hobos on ghost trains potentially down the road. So is that a potential thing,
I have been known to hop a ghost train from time to time. Yeah,
Fantastic.
I think I would be down for that.
Nice.
That is gonna be wild. Yeah, we're always looking to do more things, and I think that Doug covered a lot. Malifaux is super important to us. It's super important. I mean, we made a channel about it, right? And I think the early days of the Danger Planet, we had originally, I think we pitched it as let's do a Malifaux channel, and then immediately we were like, okay, that's probably not going to work. We got to do other things. And then like day one, we just started shooting Malifaux videos and haven't stopped yet. So like, it's so easy to do a lot of content for something that you're so passionate about, because you guys have built an amazing world.
Thank you.
And I think that having the sort of the lore master, as I don't care. Your title in my mind is lore master. That's what I got.
It's actually literally what we just call you, quite honestly.
It is, yeah. It's just.
I'm not alone. Our writers are super talented,
Yeah.
and
So-
I've got Matthew right next to me working on Through the Breach content. So
Right now. Oh.
well, I got him right behind me. Actually.
Yeah, he's sitting right there.
He just hangs
No,
out in your office. That's where he
I'm
writes
just
his
saying
stuff.
that it takes more than one person.
Yeah.
So.
And like at some point it'd be super awesome to have a bunch of and literally the writers on. I would love to do something like that. That's definitely something we can talk about. But are any of the writers actually employees of the company, or are they mostly like freelance? Or
Yeah, we work with freelance writers that we've been working with since first edition.
Amazing.
N.A. Wolf, for example, has been working with us since before me on his very first one was a very early Chronicles story that you can go find, and I think that's actually the one where Jesse actually is in for the very first time. McCabe's Jesse.
Halliday,
That
I think.
yeah. Just so
Yeah.
I mean, it's another example of an old character that we just put right back into the game. So
That's so awesome.
yeah.
And like, I get for sure that you guys are a small company. But like the fact that you took the time out to talk to us, like this isn't a thing that we could get with any other game. There's no way.
I wish we could have done it earlier. I know we've been planning this for a while.
Yeah, dude, oh my god. The convention season. You guys, how I don't know how you do it. You're at everything all the time. It's ridiculous.
I do it by not doing fun things at the end of the day. You know, I'm in the hotel. I'm an introvert homebody at heart. You know.
Yeah.
So I need to kind of dial back those batteries at the recharge before the next one. But I love conventions. I think that's kind of the food stuff of a designer. That's the kind of stuff that we survive on, is getting that interaction with our community. So if I could do it more often, I would.
I literally was not kidding at the beginning. I've seen Kyle at many a convention now because I go a lot with my game store. I go a lot for a bunch of other reasons. And I think I walked by the booth a total of 3 times at PAX Unplugged this last weekend. One time in the morning before you guys had opened, and then the other 2 times, both of the times I was just gonna stop by and say, hey, how's the weekend going? Are you guys tired and dead and stuff? And literally I couldn't even talk to Kyle because he was busy demoing Vagrantsong and
it was endless at PAX.
Endlessly. I think I said hi to Chris one time while he was there. I waved to. I didn't even think I exchanged words with Kelly. I think I just waved. Because you guys are killing it. You're so busy and so engaged with the community. So on behalf of the community, thanks a bunch. Keep on keeping on. I think that's
keep on being awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
So I guess this is probably the point where we'll do a quick wrap up. We've been talking with Kyle, Rowan from Wyrd. Thank you so much for coming. This has been lovely. If you guys want to check out more stuff, I know Kyle does sort of, I don't know if lurk is the right word, but hang out in our Discord.
Kyle, just so we can credit the other creators that put in work on the Madness of Malifaux book, could you send us a list of the designers and everyone, and we'll feature them in this video for callouts if they want? If they want it.
Yeah, and I mean, I was gonna.
I'm an idiot.
Look,
sorry, ignore me. I'm stupid. Yeah,
we've got this credits page here that lists all the people that are way better at their jobs than me. Let's start from the top. Creative direction: Nathan Caroland and Eric Johns, my bosses.
Ooh.
Producer Kelly, who without Kelly Wyrd wouldn't exist. The whole thing operates on Kelly. Lead design, Matt Carter. He's a mastermind when it comes to mechanics. Design, Chris and myself. Chris is our newest designer, and he's super smart. Additional design, Matthew. And sorry, Matthew, it's a last name I can never pronounce. Mahurakan, and he works on Through the Breach and helps shape a lot of those things. Writing, Tim Akers and Matthew as well. Tim Akers has been working with us since the Other Side starter, or the Other Side book. His very first story with us was the Gibbering Horde story, and that was my very first project. So I love Tim Akers. Additional writing, me. Editing, Jesse, who also is one of those people at our company that wears a ton of hats, and she's super smart. Editing, me. Graphic design, John Kaysen, who is a magician at what he does. You were talking about the Lady Justice stuff. That box is so gorgeous. I don't know how the guy does it.
It's amazing.
And then we have so many great artists, and our playtesters are also listed in here. I don't want to waste your time with that, but without our playtesters, the game would be a mess. So thank you all for playing our games.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I think it's important to call out the folks that contribute and help out. That was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super awesome. So we're gonna talk to Kyle more. I hope in the near future. We definitely need to talk a whole lot.
Until Kyle stops answering our emails and starts ignoring our phone calls, we will.
It might take me a few days to get back to you, and I apologize for that. I'm a busy person.
Nah, man, you guys are awesome. We love working with you guys. Thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna keep featuring you, find ways to work with you guys as long as you'll talk to us. And man, do we fucking love your product. So we're here to play it and make nonsense tier lists about it until we kick the bucket.
And I'm here to watch that stuff. So thanks for making it all.
Yeah, and so keep a tab on the planet, guys. We're gonna have more stuff coming up. Like I said, we're gonna keep harassing Kyle. Hopefully, he agrees to do some more stuff with us. And
I'm
keep
just not gonna leave. I'm just gonna hang out with you
just
guys.
hang out. And definitely check out Wyrd's homepage. They've got a lot of new releases coming out now, not just for this game system, but also Through the Breach. They also have a lot of holiday sales going on right now that you guys can check out. And they also have Vagrantsong, which is this the third publishing? And it's sold out almost immediately every time, Kyle?
Oh geez, yeah, third print already within 1 year, which what? I can't believe that.
I mean, it was the hotness on BGG for a while. I can't keep it in stock at my game store, and not just ordering it from you guys, because we also order it through two of our main distributors, ACD and Alliance. So like we get a lot of it, and it goes every time we sell it. I think we had like one in the shelf when I left for PAX Unplugged, and it was gone when I came back. So.
Oh, I got to get my hands on the new scenario pack for Vagrantsong. Yeah, I gotta grab that.
I'm not biased, but that might be the best scenario in the game. It's so good. And then also, I don't know if you can see behind me, we got DC, my favorite little demon cat, and right now I'm working on a giant expansion for that game as well that we maybe we could dive into next time.
Ooh. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good teaser. Hell, oh man, that's a good hook line.
I've done this once or twice, guys.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys, we'll see you next time on the planet. Lots of new stuff coming. Thanks.